Hey everybody, this is Matthew Soltiziak, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast, part of the Minute Media Podcast Network. This season, it's all grit. I speak with a variety of guests and interview key players, gaining more insight on what makes this team go. The Detroit Lions are now in a new, grittier era, and we look beyond just the kneecaps when it comes to the analysis. Welcome to another episode. In this episode, we discussed the Detroit Lions' 48-42 loss to the Buffalo Bills. We're going to talk about it all, folks. The game, the injuries, the attitude, and where things stand as the race for number one in the NFC has even less room for error. That and more. Let's get to it, Lions fans.
This is James Williams, and you're listening to Not the Same Old Lions podcast.
Joining me today is James Cook, the senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle, not the running back. You can also hear him on the Get Around podcast. That drops on Mondays. James, it's good to have you here. Glad you made it back from Detroit.
Well, good to be here, even given the situation. But the hits keep coming. They've been accompanied by wins the last 11 weeks, but a little bit more of a bitter pill after a narrow loss this week.
That it is. And joining both of us is Coach Jerry Angers. He's a former Michigan High School Coach of the Year, as well as Coach of the Week by the Detroit Lions. He's current scouting and training director for Bull Rush Sports. Coach, happy to have you joining us.
Glad to be here. New week.
New week. And the great thing about having Coach, especially for this week, is because he got to see the live broadcast on television. James and I were there in person. I have not had time to go back and watch any of the film or the replay of it, neither has James. In addition to watching the live broadcast, Coach has already jumped into film on this one, folks. Let's get started, though, by hearing from Coach Dan Campbell.
Not enough. We just got to be ready to go. We got to be more locked in next time we play. And honestly, that's what I'm saying. I'm serious. It starts with me, man. I have to do a much better job of getting these guys ready to roll and be urgent about this type of opponent. So no excuses. It just wasn't good enough. And that was the bottom line. It's frustrated. Everybody's frustrated. The guys are frustrated. But you know what? That's part of life, man. You lose, and it's a bad taste in your mouth, and now what are we going to do about it? Do we sit there and feel sorry for ourselves? We're going to bounce back and go to Chicago.
Okay, guys, you heard from the coach. You watched the game. In a sentence or two or three, give me your overall reaction. James, let's start with you.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody wants to hear anything this week from a guy named James Cook. But at least my name's not Josh Allen. I think we need Peyton Manning and Jeff Daniels to come back and do another exorcism, but this time do it in the training room.
That would be a location I think a few people might be interested in hearing about, for sure. Coach, how about you?
Sometimes you have to get knocked down so you can get back up to reach your full potential. It's time for everybody to prove that being in this exclusive club of 1,696 active players in the greatest sport known to man. Next man up.
All right. I'm going to say the team did not quit in this game. That's a big takeaway. And that was even as the injuries mounted. They didn't quit. And the injuries concerned me more than the loss does. All right. Let's talk about what we liked in this game. I think we all kind of agreed they were overdue for some creativity. And that creativity, it returned. It returned big time. And I think the first big one was by a big guy. And that was Dan Skipper. James, what were your thoughts on that? Tell me, I know you happened on your side of the field. You got a great look at this thing. What was your reaction?
As soon as I saw the ball go that way and I saw who caught it, I think I started jumping. Jumped up in my seat and started putting my hands up and celebrating a big guy touchdown.
Dan Skipper catching a pass from Jared Goff for a touchdown. Time when the Lions need a little bit of a spark, too, on offense.
Yeah, sure. And showing off that 5.5 speed. We'll get to that later, right, Jerry?
Yep. Oh, yes, we will.
So, Coach, go ahead, James.
The only thing I had written out here is I said, just keep throwing up TDs or whatever you're doing over there, Skip.
All right, well, Coach, you got to see it from the television point of view. take us through what your observation was and how you felt about this.
The dude ran a great route, hands squeezed it, looked like he'd been on the jugs machine with St. Brown. But the best part was he didn't run to the corner of the end zone. He attacked the corner because he wanted to hit somebody. I loved it. And you know, other than the loss, you know, that's one of the good things. Plus, he was having, I think his wife was being induced last night for their baby. So hopefully that put a smile on his face because I know the loss did not.
For sure. It's going to be, you know, something he will remember, that moment, going along with obviously leading up to a huge life moment here. Yeah. And you know what? I wouldn't want to be someone trying to stop Dan Skipper. The size of that guy coming at me, not at all. But, man, I still go back to Hard Knocks when Dan Skipper was getting cut by the team. And he said to Coach Campbell, is there anything else I could have done to make this team? And Campbell was like, you did everything, Skip. You've done everything. You've done everything we ever could have asked for. The man still did not give up, and look where he is a couple of years later. So, inspiring story by not taking no for an answer and working through stuff when people tell you you're not there. So, man, he's become a Detroit Lion favorite amongst many fans, and couldn't be happier for the guy.
Yeah, on Yahoo when they had a notification like of a video for that touchdown or whatever, you know, for a big guy touchdown, and they referred to him as a cult hero. Detroit cult hero Dan Skipper.
I would not disagree with that verbiage. I almost used it myself. That's not where the creativity ended, though. The Lions did a couple more. Jared Goff tossed it to David Montgomery, who threw a nice spiral back to Goff and then connected with Jamison Williams, Coach. Tell me how you like the dissection of that play.
Oh, it was just so nice. You could see it, you know, develop because, you know, when he went back behind Jared so that he could throw the pass back, you know, or Jared back and throw it to JMO. But the nice thing about it is they used the Bills' speed against them because they fly to everything. And as soon as that play was going to the right, which way it looked like it was going, everybody was kind of out of position. And for them just to set it up and make that throw is, you know, again, getting the crowd involved, getting the team involved, and trying to slow down that Bills defense.
Nice. Well, in addition to that play, James, you got something to add?
Yeah, what was interesting is we were at the game. We'll talk about it later for the Coach of the Week thing. But one of the local guys from up here was Pat Maloney, who had gotten it, and he actually called that play. Before the play happened, he's like they're gonna run a flea flicker right here before they'd even lined up or anything like that. He was just yelling flea flicker, flea flicker.
Well, he must be studying some Lions film too, so that's impressive that he identified that. And you know what I also like was the creativity down the field. It wasn't just behind the line of scrimmage. We had the hook and ladder play again, right? St. Brown coming across, laterals it to Gibbs. Coach, they're using the speed of JMO, not JMO, but Gibbs, and they're going against the Bills' speed against them. It's almost you're increasing that acceleration speed then in a situation like that.
Oh, it is. It is. You know, and you're getting these guys out of place. You know, their hips are turned, their shoulders are turned, and all of a sudden he's coming back the other way. You don't see it coming. And I'll tell you, when, you know, Gibbs hit the corner on that one, you're just like, is he going to take it to the house? You know, I mean, he's just so explosive. So again, you know, you have to do things in games like that. You have to take chances. You have to be aggressive, and the Lions were aggressive.
All right, yeah, and the offense did not quit in this game at all. Coach, talk about that throw from Goff to Tim Patrick for the touchdown.
Well, that was the one. Goff used his feet. I kept saying about it every time Allen would run out of the pocket and throw the ball, and then Goff would look like he'd say, "Well, that's my friend over there. I golf with him. I got to make sure I roll out." But Goff used his feet so well, and that one was just a terrific play. You know, he runs out to the right, looks like he's going to take off, and he just flips it to TP. Well, TP takes that 6'4", whatever, 6'5" frame and launches himself from about the 5 or 4 yard line and stretches out and puts it over. You know, there's probably nobody else, maybe Robertson on our roster that could have made that play. So that was just huge.
It was. He's been such a huge addition, filling that number 3 spot so well on the team. James, Jared Goff threw for 494 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He obviously did this on 59 attempts. And the Lions offense was rather one-dimensional, which we'll get into later. But even more impressive maybe because it had to be so one-dimensional is the play of Jared Goff in this game.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first time in NFL history that any quarterback has done that, where they've thrown for over 400 yards, 5 TDs, no interceptions, and then not won the game.
Kind of the reverse of the Houston game, right?
Exactly, I think, yeah. And he also passed Bobby Lane for second most passing yards in franchise history in this game.
There you
So maybe
go.
that'll help get the curse of Bobby Lane even farther behind.
All right. Anything else you got on Jared Goff or the offense there, James?
Yeah, I mean, the offense had a lot of good moments in this game. They obviously kept the Lions in it with the injuries to the defense and just how much pressure the Bills were able to generate. But Sam Laporta is the third tight end in NFL history to have at least 125 catches and 15 touchdowns in 2 seasons. The only other two are Rob Gronkowski and Jimmy Graham. Two pretty good tight ends who did it in the same 2 seasons.
Okay.
Amon-Ra St. Brown joins Calvin Johnson and Herman Moore as the only players in team history with 10 plus touchdown receptions in consecutive years. Is also his third or 19th 100-yard game, which is third all time in Lions history.
Anytime you're being compared to Calvin Johnson and Herman Moore, you're doing something really well. And it's not a shock to see Amon-Ra St. Brown mentioned among those Lion greats.
Yep. And then the Lions trio of Montgomery, Gibbs, and St. Brown became the first trio in NFL history to get 1,000 scrimmage yards and 10 touchdowns each in back-to-back seasons. So the offense continues to do pretty amazing things despite how beat up the defense is.
Yes, and again, impressive as well, considering that the running game became a little bit, I don't know, it was missing. It was missing for a good chunk of this game, and we're going to talk about that. I think Coach has some great insight on that. All right, another thing you want to talk about, we don't have a whole lot more of good things to talk about, but James, you want to talk about the defense for a minute?
Yeah, the defense did a really good job of taking Buffalo's wide receivers out of the game. Part of that, I think, was Buffalo's game plan in that they were attacking the linebackers, so they were attacking them with tight ends and running backs. But the Lions also just took the wide receivers out of the game. Amari Cooper didn't have a single catch. The wide receivers had 9 catches total. Only one of those went for more than 10 yards. That was the big play to Keon Coleman, which is his only catch of the game. Vildor had a pretty solid game. He played, I think Jerry said 49 snaps and only allowed 1 catch for 9 yards in the whole game. So he played pretty well. Got beat a few times, other times where it didn't result in catches or anything like that, but overall was not as bad as people are lamenting.
All right. Well, we talked about the things we liked in the game. Obviously, there's going to be a number of things we didn't like in this one. But before we get to that, you heard the coach at the beginning of this. The coach, he's leading by example, which should surprise nobody. Give us some insights on that.
Well, taking the blame. When you come out and say, my job is to have these guys ready, I did not have them ready. We walked out of the locker room, we went 2, 3 and outs. They drove down the field and scored on us, and that's the thing is in a game like that, you have to have the guys ready. I've been in those situations for years, and you come back from that game and you have to look at yourself in the mirror because there's only a couple of people you can't lie to, and it's the guy in the mirror for sure and the man upstairs. And I think that's what Campbell's doing, and Campbell's going to take blame. Yeah, maybe he thinks they should have did this on offense or do that on defense, or special teams should have done this, and even with the onside kick, he said, I thought we were going to get it, and if I'd have known it was going to turn out that way, I wouldn't have done it. That's just him being funny in his way of telling people, I would do it again if I had to. So I don't, and I think that's what you do. I think you have to do that, take that blame. And then, your players look at you and go, man, this guy's down in the dumps right now. Let's pick him up, just like with the injuries. And I think that's something that they're going to rally around this, you guys. I just believe that.
All right. And yeah, again, the leadership of Dan Campbell stepping up and just putting it on his shoulders and saying that he knows he can do more. And we're going to get into a lot more of that as well. The other thing that's impressive, Coach, is the determination that David Montgomery showed to play in that game. We saw him come out, and then after halftime, he's back in, and now we know he's done for the season. So, you had something you want to share on that one.
How tough is he? It's funny because when he came back in, I think we were texting back and forth. I'm like, Monty's out, he's done. There's no way. And then I see him back in the field again, and then I think he has 3 or 4 carries, and he's grinding and he's running and he's hitting people, and he gets up, and you could see him favoring his knee as he's going back to the huddle, and I'm like, man, to do that as that individual, that tells you what Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions have put together. These guys are gritty and they're going to fight and claw and do everything they can for each other. And now that he's out, Sonic's going to rally around that, guys. And the Lions are going to rally around that because that's what Dan Campbell even said in his presser. They're going to rally around, hey, my comrade's down, my boy's down. I'm picking him up right now. Make the coach look good, make us look good. So I sign him for another term after he's done with this one because we got to keep that guy in a Lions uniform.
All right, and we're going to get to more of that as well coming up here. So let's though next get to turning points or pivotal moments in this game. We've already kind of alluded to it. The offense struggles early. They go down 14-0. The first 2 drives were snoozers, James.
Yeah, they ran 8 plays for only 3 net yards because they took some sacks. Only 1 for first down, no points, obviously. Bills, meanwhile, they took their 16 plays, 151 yards, 8 first downs, 14 points. Just took a lot of the energy out of the stadium too, with going down 14-0 early. And I think part of that is just Buffalo came in with a game plan to attack the weakness of our defense with the linebacking core, so many guys out, and new guys coming in, and the Lions didn't do that as much early on with the Bills' weakness, which was that they had 3 defensive backs ruled out, 3 starting defensive backs ruled out, right before the game. It took a while for the Lions to attack that. They tried to establish the run like normal and didn't work this time.
No, and you know what? They almost didn't have enough time to even throw the ball that far down the field either. So that also affected some things. But, Coach, you and I were in Baltimore last year, and the Lions got behind pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And when they're down 14-0 and we've got 1 yard, I'm sitting here thinking, this could get out of hand in a hurry because Buffalo's averaging 5 to 6 yards on first down, and we're averaging like 0. And so a 5 to 6 yard gain on first down sure makes 2nd and 4 look good, and then 3rd down might not even happen. And so I think that was pivotal falling behind because I also think that changes the strategy of the game a little bit. And so, the run game definitely affected by that because you're trying to change things up. You're trying to also move a little quicker, but how did that affect you, or how would you see that affecting the Lions when they dropped behind that quickly?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially as much as they score. I knew the Lions would score, or at least score with them, but I didn't think we were going to have to chase as much, chasing points. And we were chasing points. The big thing is, a lot of times when in these big games, the away team always comes into the house and, gets up like 10-0 or gets up 14-0. And then, the home team rallies and wins it in the end. If you look at that, it happens a bunch of times. But this one felt really weird. Like, oh boy, this is not good. And what kind of adjustments can we make? So, I think it changed the complexity. And I think it changed our coaches in their play calls, whether it's offense or defense. And I think, I don't know if they panicked, but I think they started to get into a situation like, boy, this is not how we thought it was going to turn out.
Yeah, and like you said, it changes the feel of that game.
Mm-hmm.
And the Lions came back though. They got that touchdown. It was 14-7, and the Bills were near midfield on 4th and 2. And old school analytics would have people punting this all day long, but we don't always do that anymore. The Bills completed a nice pass on that play. If the Lions stop them there, they've got the ball. It's 14-7. and you've got great field position. So that was a pivotal moment in the game, Coach. It would have slowed momentum down. It would have allowed the Lions to stop doing what you said, which was chase. And when you're chasing, it's a whole different feeling. You're not the one in control at that point.
Oh yeah, and that pass play just frustrated me. We went press coverage on it with the back on the inside slot or the inside of the trip set, which we talked about that in the pregame, and I think it was Turner tried to go underneath, which there's no way you're going to cover back. Where instead of coming over top, and they ran a double pick 1 yard from the line of scrimmage. It was a beautifully designed play, and of course Allen just lobs it up, and it's easy to catch a ball when there's nobody within 15 yards of you.
Yeah, and so that was big because then they were able to go down and score. And another one, and Coach, I have not had time to go back and watch this. I'm sure it was the way it was, but when the Lions were trailing 28-14, St. Brown caught the ball and was ruled a fumble.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a penalty on the Lions offense or something on that as well. So then it moved the ball even more. And so probably should have had this conversation with you ahead of time, but I'll have it now. I didn't know if it was even a catch. It looked so close, like he didn't make a football move, that it should have just been an incomplete pass is what I was thinking. Did you get a great view?
Perfect. It was a catch. His hands
Okay.
are so strong. He caught the ball. He hung onto the ball. And he was making steps, and he was trying to pull it in to tuck it in at the same
Yeah.
time. And the DB just did a great job on that. So so that was we have to go back right to before halftime, you guys. I don't know if you guys are talking about the missed field goals, but we missed a field goal also. But there's a play before the field goal that Goff misses St. Brown on a takeoff route. I don't know exactly what they call it. It looked like a skinny post to the side, back to the post, and Goff missed St. Brown just off his fingertips, which may have gone for 7. And Goff came to the sidelines. They handed him the pad, and the iPad, I think they used one of those other ones, and he just smashed it down on the ground. I've never seen Jared Goff do that. And I
Wow.
think he was so mad, that he missed, because it would have been 21-21 at halftime. I believe that was right before halftime. So, and then we missed the field goal. So I just
Okay.
wanted to bring that one up too.
Yeah, because the Lions actually kept the Bills out of the end zone before halftime,
Yes.
forced them to kick a field goal, which they missed on a super short field, and then the Lions went down, were not able to score, and then missed a long field goal. James, a lot of those things right there, one or two of them go a different way, and you're looking at a different football game. Of course, they didn't, and that's what happens. What do you want to weigh in on?
Yeah, I think the two I was talking to a friend of mine after the game, and I was just saying, yeah, if you just change two little things in that game, if they don't have that fumble, if they recover the onside kick that they went for, the first one at the beginning of the fourth quarter, or the one at the very end, this game's completely different. And they almost got both of those onside kicks. Both were pretty incredibly close. The Lions were actually very, very close to winning this game, despite playing with next to no starters from the beginning of the season left. Like what, 3 guys, I think, starting for the beginning of the season. Well, 4 with Terry and Arnold,
Mhm.
3 DBs and Jack Campbell. That's it from the starting lineup from day one.
Well, we got to Lee McNeil back, too, for part of the game.
Yeah.
Right, but he got hurt, during the
Yeah.
game, so he was out. Yeah.
Yeah, Coach, you wanted to bring down just a couple of different plays that one or two things happen differently. You have a much different result. So go ahead and
Oh
bring
my
those
God. I
up
mean,
because those are things that frustrated you.
Yeah, it was, and it's just I'm watching. And when I went back and broke the whole game down today, and spent probably 3 hours watching it, trying like what is going on, what happened. There's the broken coverage on the Allen scramble. Pascal almost sacks him. I think it was their third touchdown. Coleman's down the field. CD was hurt. I think the play before that, or 2 plays before that, Dorsey's in the game. He's all over Coleman. The coverage is beautiful. And he starts to scramble, and Dorsey kind of squeezes down 35 yards downfield, thinking he's going to run the ball, and then he lets it go. And again,
Yeah.
a guy like that with his arm, and he lets it go, and now Dorsey's in catch-up mode. They score a touchdown on that. So Pascal misses that tackle. That play there knocks it down. The other one, I think it was the second, Allen's second the touchdown run that Allen had where he went untouched and everybody's like, what's going on? Neiman and Turner both take the fullback into the flats, and he walks in. Nobody touched him. One or the other one's going to take him in man coverage. Again, I'm not down these guys. These are just new guys in the system. But, I don't know. They had a pulling tackle and all that. Maybe we don't stop Allen. That's a big dude. But it looked so bad. And then the other one.
Well, and then, Coach, that just goes to show, again, a reminder of how great of a quarterback Josh Allen is, and your room for error is so minimal.
It is. And, he looks at that like, oh, my God, there's nobody. I'm not even going to get a hit. And so he didn't even get hit on that one. So everybody's like, wow, what a great, and, of course, we'll talk about the announcers afterwards. Oh, what a great play design. Oh, my God. I'm like, what a play design. It was two guys that haven't played that position before because Neiman is in there playing Trevor Nowaski's spot probably. And
right.
Trevor Nowaski sets that edge on that. And I would have loved to have seen Josh Allen against Trevor. I'm just going to be honest with you. And then the other one was the little short pass. I think they put it up, was it 45 to 28. They had the little flare pass to number 22, right? I think you got James. Is that right? Was it 22?
Ray Davis? Ray
22,
Davis.
yeah, Ray Davis.
Yeah, Ray Davis. Thank you. And Turner, had his coverage, and all of a sudden he fell down. He slipped, and I think he tried to put his foot in the dirt, or I should say in the turf, to jump this route, and so that route looked wide open. And again, what a great play design! Oh my God. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. That's again, any one of those plays goes different. This game goes different. Injuries
Sure. All right. Well, let's go to the one James already kind of brought up. The onside kick attempt. All right. 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Lions were up 38. They were trailing 38 to 28 at that point. They go for an onside kick. It gets returned to the 3. Now, a couple things here. One, and this is the big, so I guess, let's just talk about that, the decision. James, let's start with you.
Yeah, that was the one at the time where I was just like, man, it seemed like Campbell was trying to do too much, but I get it, what he was trying to do. I mean, he's trying to keep his defense off the field because they're so beat up and everything at that point. But they had been doing better in the second half. I think Aaron Glenn has started dialing up a few more blitzes where they were bringing some extra guys instead of just relying on the front four to provide pressure like they did in the first half. So I thought they were doing a little bit better job. I don't know if I would have done that, but I mean, they almost pulled it off. It was really close.
That it was. Coach, how about you? Onside kick. I mean, this call is getting a lot of criticism on social media and whatnot.
All right, so let's direct that first of all. In a game like this, when things aren't going the way you had planned them, you have to steal a possession or get something back. You have to, whether it's a blocked punt or a blocked kick, or you have to turn the table. You have to ignite your players. You have to, get them going on that. So I think that's part of it. Okay, the defense was playing better. Okay, but here's the other thing that people aren't thinking about. If they recover, not us, if the Bills recover that ball at that spot, the defense is playing better. The thought process, I believe, in the coaching staff is if we hold them to 3, it's still a 2-score game, right?
Yeah.
Puts them up 13. If we get it, we win the game. And so let's talk about, again, I watched that thing today. So you have Joseph, Abraham, Ben Neiman, Isaac Turner, and Vaikai out there, okay? Joseph and Abraham are the two guys that go for the ball. Joseph jumps in the air and tries to catch it in the air or bat it forward because he's thinking, oh my God, I'm going to score on this thing.
Yeah.
I can't Colton, what was it? I can't remember the return guy's name. He tips it up. Beeman, the problem, how do you say it? Beeplan?
Bow plan.
Beauplan, thank you. Beauplan takes an inside shoulder towards the middle of the field of the number 2 blocker instead of taking the outside shoulder, which I'm guaranteeing that's what he's supposed to do. And then he makes that tackle, or he hits the guy while he's bobbling it, and we still got a chance to get it. The inches, guys, inches. And again, the reason I listed all those guys is new guy, off practice squad, off the practice squad,
Yeah.
draft pick, and our starting safety. So how many times did that group of 5 run that time? How many times? Maybe once, maybe twice this week, when the other guys that were probably in those spots have run it 30 times. So God bless them. It almost worked. And one other thing, hey, you can see how excited I'm on this. One other thing, it sets up the next onside kick, guys. It sets up the next onside kick with the dribbler, and we almost get that one. Does that make
It did.
when you're chasing? So that whole thought process right there, I agree with it 100%.
All right. Well, I gotta say, I was at the game, and my father-in-law looks at me and like in disbelief as they're lining up to do it, and I legit just I shrugged my shoulders.
Yep.
I did. I was like, I guess I don't know. Here we go. Couple of things on this. One, you could not imagine it working this badly, right? I mean, this just isn't what usually happens. 2, and I think this is the bigger part of the real issue here, is the new kickoff rule plays into this issue, okay? Because there's no such thing as a surprise onside kick anymore, okay? And that takes a big element out of the probability of recovering one of these. So you can make the argument that you shouldn't have done it because the odds of recovering it are that much smaller. I like what you said there, Coach, though. You figure, you know what? We're gonna give them 30 yards. Who cares if they make it, they start at the ball at their 30 or our 40. We're gonna play defense, and we have a good red zone defense. Let's try and hold them to a field goal or something like that if we don't get it. So I see that part. The other thing is, you can only do 2 of these a game. You can only do 2 onside kicks a game. You're really limiting some potential opportunities here. So I'm going to say you need to change something. You can't say, they're not saying just because we lost the game or anything. Just it changes a strategy in the game that I don't think makes the game better. I think it makes it worse. It's almost like saying we're going to go back to football in 1991, and we're not going to have the 2-point conversion in the NFL anymore. Okay? Remember how strict it was when you didn't have that 2-point conversion and whatnot? And so it takes away some of the, I don't want to say the nuance, but some of the strategy and some of the unpredictability of it, where it's very regimented. So I think that's something we're talking about, James, is, the kickoff rule plays into this. Again, I shrug my shoulders as to whether they should have done it or not. It didn't work, but I see the strategy for it. And, Coach, you also did say, sorry, James, Campbell was asked about it. He goes, well, yeah, if I knew they were going to return it to the 3-yard line, I probably wouldn't have done it. Well, of course, nobody would have done it then. And, it's like, so, Campbell didn't envision that. Nobody saw that happening. It was close. But again, I think the NFL's got to review this kickoff rule in, or something to make some sort of adjustment just to keep some of what has been a fun part, which is I love the surprise. And that's one of the strengths of the Lions is that creativeness and the surprise to catch people off guard. But James, what are your thoughts on the kickoff rule and some of the requirements that go with it?
Yeah, I have heard some guys throwing around a possibility of replacing the onside kick, and this is just fans talking among themselves. This is not, I don't think, anything that the league is necessarily considering or anything like that, but it's something that people are throwing out there, is that instead of doing an onside kick, you do one untimed, the offense can elect to try one onside or one untimed down where they have to gain 20 yards, and then they get to keep the ball.
Yeah, but they probably have to start like somewhere like at their own like 30-yard line or something like that. So there's like a big consequence if you don't get it.
Right. If you
Yeah.
don't get it, the other team gets the ball and probably near midfield or something. So and it's also getting 20 yards in a play when the other team knows that you need 20 yards is not a very high percentage gamble in the NFL. But the onside kick this year is what, 5, 6%, I think, or something like that, maybe even less. I don't know. But I also think that calling one that at that point in the early in the fourth quarter, I think a little bit of it was to try to confuse the Bills because at that point, I mean, Jerry, if you're coaching in a game, you don't have your hands team ready at that point. And normally, when the other team is kicking off, late in the fourth quarter, you already have your hands team ready. And I don't know that the Bills necessarily would have. So I think the Lions were hoping to maybe catch them off guard a little bit, and that they would have to run the hands team out late or something. But obviously, it didn't work. But it did come very, very close, man.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they did run their hands team out, and they did do that switch. But a
Yeah.
couple years ago, the Lions caught the Rams off guard when they didn't think they were going to do it after a score because that element of surprise was there. And so, I don't know, I'll be interested to see what happens this offseason with it, and if it gets revisited or whatnot. I think the kickoff as itself, it's okay. There aren't that many kicks being returned anyway this year. But I hear the injury rate's down, so that is important and that is good. All right, so you may have think we already answered the things we didn't like or our concerns because some of these pivotal moments are things we didn't like. But now we're getting into the things we didn't like. And we already talked about starting the game 3 and out, chasing points all night, and how that changed our game strategy. Well, a big part of that was in the trenches, coach, right? The Lions could not stop the Buffalo offense, especially on first down. They were getting, 4, 5, 6, 7 yards as they started this thing out. And so when that's happening on first down, your defense is going to be that much more likely to not succeed on second and third down.
Yeah, you don't want the playbook wide open on with that Allen character back there. And when you got when he can choose what he wants to do, when he can take a shot if he has to do, where he can just throw a little flare, where he can do, he can run it. There's just a bunch of different things that hurt. You hear me say that all the time. You got to stay ahead of the schedule. Stay ahead of the sticks, whatever. And he's way past schedule with the way they were running the football. We had a ton of MAs, missed assignments in line in gap responsibility on runs. And
Because that surprised me, coach, because we got McNeil and Reeder and Pascal and Levi back. We got all these reinforcements back, but it still looked like the second half of the Green Bay Packer game. I mean, the Detroit Lions gave up 197 yards rushing in this game. 197 yards. And so when that's happening, James, you're really going to struggle to, I don't know, slow down the offense. I mean, Buffalo never punted in this game, case in point. But what were you seeing on this?
Yeah, and Sam Martin's big return to Detroit, he didn't even get the punt.
Touche.
Yeah, the one thing that the Bills kept running over and over and over again was a fairly simple counter play where they kept pulling the right tackle and the right guard repeatedly and running to the left. I don't know if that was something that they read a weakness that was something that the personnel the Lions had in the game, but they just kept running the same. The action on the line was pretty much the same with the right guard and right tackle pulling and leading out on the left side. And they ran that with James Cook a few times and got some big chunks on it. And then they had one time where Allen kept it on kind of an RPO thing, and then they ran it almost like as a reverse one time too. Um, I think they counted that even as a touchdown pass because he pitched it forward to Shakir on that. But that was off that same counter action, and the Lions never really seemed to adjust to it very well, or they were or the Bills were just executing it so well they couldn't stop it.
Yeah, and then also that led to the Bills keeping their offense on the field longer, wearing our defense down more, and just played into a lot of things. And going with the lack of stopping the run, we didn't get a ton of pass rush on Josh Allen. We did a few times, and we missed, right? We missed those tackles, and Josh Allen was able to get out coach, and he does what he does. He made plays.
yeah, he does. And I don't think let me talk too bad on the run game. They ran that extra offense lineman like we talked about.
Yep,
They
number
ran away
70.
from the trip set to the weak side, like we talked about. They used motion to bring a backer out because we rotate, we slide our backers by motion, or we slide our backers by when they get to an extra man out. And it was the big cutbacks that broke those plays open. So the play was going right. They sold it right. He put his dirt in the ground and came back hard to left. And we had no fits on the backside. We had no fits on the backside. Part of that run thing, and let's talk about Josh Allen and what we talked about in pregame. Okay, Josh Allen threw for 362 yards, 2 touchdowns. Okay, his
Yep.
average throw time this year, his lowest. We talked about this in pregame, was 2.79. Okay,
And so that's
and
2.79 seconds before he releases the ball
before
from
he
the
releases the
snap.
ball, exactly. He was at 3.4 in this game. Okay, so almost 0.7 above it, point whatever. And the other thing is, so you think about that. Now that here's the other thing. Out of those 362 yards, 171 of those were outside the pocket throws.
Yeah, he's scrambling and he's
Yes.
making something happen on the move, and he is really good at that. And that's
Yes.
hard for defensive backs to stay with, because you saw a couple of times the linebackers like, do I come up and get him and leave this guy, or do I let him run?
Mhm. So that was a big change up right there. Okay. Another thing, he had 10 carries for 69 yards and 2 touchdowns. Okay. 10 carries, 69 yards for 2 touchdowns. We talked about this in the pre-thing. His average designed runs were 1.2, 1.3 going into this game, where they said we're going to run outside zone or we're going to run quarterback draw, not counting that
The
quarterback,
scrambling. Yeah.
the quarterback sneak and the scrambling. He had 5 against the Lions. Okay.
Yeah.
He had 5 against the Lions. So when they ran a couple of those, I think that changed our defense. And so we weren't getting those backside fits because we were so worried about. There was 2 or 3 run plays, you guys, where if we just did our job instead of trying to make a play, we would have stopped those run plays. But we had DNs flying down because they're going to get Josh Allen from the backside, or they're going to get the running back from the backside, and then the running back came back and then from the alley or gap that they had responsibilities on. So I think those two things, if you think about those two things, that was a different off of what we talked about in the pregame on how they did that, and we had a tough time adjusting with new guys. I'm not making excuses, but it
Yep.
is. They haven't been in that defense to make those adjustments. So a lot of our fits were really, 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 really bad by our backers.
All right. And then, Josh Allen is playing like an MVP type caliber candidate, if not the MVP at this point, James.
Yeah, since 2021, he has 164 touchdowns between passing and running the ball. That's 30 more than any other quarterback in that span. That's a season for most quarterbacks, 30 touchdowns. And he's got that much more than any other quarterback in that span. That is a crazy amount of production that Josh Allen has had over the last few years. I mean, we talked in the preview about how much of a beast and how much of a matchup problem he is for defenses, and he proved to be every bit of that.
And he's playing at a completely different level this year than last year. I mean, he's really cut down his turnovers and made better decisions, and you're exactly right. So, our inability to stop that, coupled with our inability to run the ball better, really basically compounded the issue. And, I'm looking at this game, I'm watching the game, and again, first down, second down, we're getting stopped for losses or no gains. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs had 8 carries for 31 yards, David Montgomery 5 for 4. And we had 48 yards rushing because Jared Goff added 13. Otherwise, we would have had less than 40 yards rushing. We would have had 35 yards rushing in the entire game. Now, obviously, certain situation, chasing the score, played into that. David Montgomery, his injury, his not being completely healthy, played into that. We also went to hey, let's do the screen pass like we did against Green Bay to compensate for the fact that there's no space for these running backs to get through. Now, James, what were you seeing on the offensive line then, Coach? I want to see to you, because this is 2 weeks in a row the Lions haven't been running the ball well, and that's kind of been the Lions' bread and butter to set everything else up.
Yeah, it has been, and they weren't able to get that going, like you said. Neither Gibbs or Montgomery had a very good per carry average. The Lions as a whole didn't. I mean, their leading rusher per carry was Jared Goff at rushing average. He averaged 6.5 on 2 carries. uh, Gibbs and Montgomery didn't come anywhere near close to that. And Buffalo's defensive line is good, is one thing. I mean, we talked about that in the preview too. Their defensive line is very good, very active. But Frank Ragnow just didn't seem to have a very good game either. Got called for a couple penalties. He allowed some pressures, let some guys through. He just didn't seem to be on his game. I don't know if that foot is bothering him more and more as the season's going on or something. And then Graham Glasgow also, and he, after the game had to have an X-ray that came back negative on something. So something was bothering him as well.
Yeah, it
For their
just
parts, as I say, for their parts, Taylor Decker and Penny Sewell graded out on PFF incredibly good.
all right. Well, what we were noticing was from the limited times they actually did run, and they might not have just stopped running because they were chasing the score. It just might not have been working. Was they had most of their success when Gibbs would run to the outside and use his speed because nothing was working up the middle. And Coach, I want to hear your thoughts on all of that, but I also want to throw something else in that Coach Campbell said and get your thoughts on this. He said it's not like they don't know what they're doing anymore. It's just usually one guy, and it's going to go back to what you were talking about earlier. You talked about missed assignments on defense. There were missed assignments on offense. We talked about the one against the Packers on the 4th down where 3 guys on the same play couldn't fully get the job done, 2 completely missed. He said it's not always the same guy. It might be a wide receiver on one play, a tight end on a different play, and there's just maybe it's a guard or a tackle. One guy gets missed, and it just really ruined the play. And so what were you seeing on the blocking? And I know you want to talk about Glasgow a little bit too.
Yeah, the biggest thing on the blocking was we ran into a lot of heavy box into the run play. They knew we didn't. I used to have a thing called, we'd call it orange, and we'd go opposite, run the exact same play opposite. We kind of laid on our offensive line is really, really good. And then the other thing is they play downhill so much. A lot of our angles were off. Maybe we stepped up field, the last game to cut the block off. This one here, we should have probably stepped more on some angles, and that's what he's saying. And again, there's a couple plays. Gibbs makes a cut. Even Monty on one makes it one quick cut, and we miss the backer. The backer gets a shoestring tackle for a 3-yard gain, 4-yard gain. That looking at it from the end zone, that was a touchdown. It's things that we've done before, and which we would have probably came back and probably been successful on it. But then, of course, we had to throw the ball 185 times to get back into the game because we had to score quick. So that's part, that's a big part of it. Last week we decided, throw those little screen plays, throw those little check downs, which is the same thing as running the football. If people are going to pack the box, then we're going to play action pass you. And that's the other thing. We are so good at play action pass. We are so good at running from under center because of that. But how many times were we in gun? And it's really easy to read, figure out where Gibbs is going if he's to the left or right of things. So I think it was just the overload box thing, and like Coach said, miss assignment, miss one, and they have guys over there who are going to make plays if you don't block them. So
When you talked about the play action being a big part of the Lions' passing game, and we talked about even with Buffalo's secondary not being at full strength, we didn't take advantage of it, Coach. We weren't going downfield and taking those shots. A combination could have been the fact that we gave up a lot of pressures and Goff did not have tons of time. Some of his most impressive plays were when he was scrambling out of stuff, as James showed and talked about. And then if you're not doing the play action pass either, then the secondary is not being held in check and they're able to drift back. So what were you seeing on the offensive line for the pass protecting?
Well, I think it wasn't the pressures are the pressures. The problem, the big pressures were Glasgow gave up 9. Okay. He gave up 9 himself out of 62.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's a lot of, there were 62 pass snaps and he gave up 9 pressures. And you knock Rags back, and now you guys got freelancing, and then you're getting the pressures from Glasgow. So we are so good at setting that pocket, and golf sitting in there that he adjusted, and he made. I mean, the pressures were there, but they weren't there to where it was almost a sack pressure. You know what I'm saying? Like golf never really got happy feet. He just
Okay.
sat in there and used his feet when he need to. That was the impressive part for me was as bad as it looked. I'm not sure what the number of pressures they had on us was, but we got the ball out. We couldn't go down, and some of his best throws, guys, were freaking the throw to JMO guy was in his face. The throw to St. Brown across the middle for the 60, it was a 66 yarder was unbelievable. So, that wasn't as bad as I thought, especially when a team has to throw becomes one dimensional, which we talk about that every week. Our defense wants to get people into. Now your D line has their ears pinned back because they don't have to worry about stopping the run because they got their ears pinned back. It's tough to block that. And for us to throw for 500 yards, we're in pretty good shape for the rest of the year.
All right. Thanks for that one, Coach. So the next thing I want to talk about, thing we didn't like, is injuries. McNeil, Dorsey, Carlton Davis III, and now, as we learned, David Montgomery. James, get us started. If you go to the Lions website, there's 18 guys on IR. You can add 4 more right here. And some of these guys are coming back from IR, but this defense has been decimated so much. We talked about the Legion of Whom last week. Just talk to me about these injuries and how you're seeing this affect the Lions.
Well, it's going to be a huge effect. I mean, and they were already shorthanded. Now they're losing 4 more guys, 4 important guys, 3 off defense. The defense was already incredibly injury plagued, as we all know. And just losing 3 guys who played a lot. Dorsey also on special teams a lot. So, you're losing your starting corner who, from week 9 on, had been the top rated corner in the NFL in Carlton Davis. And he's pretty much done. And I think they said he can maybe come back for the NFC Championship game. And that's what a broken jaw is what I'm hearing that he has. I mean, so that's just a freak thing. It's not even something that you can blame on turf or surface or anything. And the same thing with Dorsey. I mean, that was, a broken leg similar to the situation with Hutch where he ran into another player. And then you've got the McNeil injury, ACL, Montgomery, MCL. Both of those are season ending. And these happening so late, they can't replace them. We're past the trade deadline, all this stuff. So it's going to be kind of a little bit more of the same where you're going to be replacing guys with guys off the street. Squad guys.
Yeah. I mean, you add these guys, it adds more hurt to the area that's already hurt, especially the defense. And the secondary's been, holding some of these things together and keeping some things in check. And you get your number 1 outside corner on injured reserve. Aleem McNeil, after getting him back, he is now gone. Those are 2 huge guys. Dorsey, huge special teamer, and helps with the defense. And then, of course, the David Montgomery thing. Now, Coach, Dan Campbell said, no one cares that we have injuries. He goes, we're not going to get a pass for something. It means some guys are going to have some incredible opportunities. Now, I know you preach next man up. Talk to me about this and talk to me about how on the defensive side, things are being affected right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, it's going to be especially the front guys, so they're going to have to come up with some things. The good thing is we're going to get help back at our linebacker spot. That's, Trevor should be back, knock on wood, which is going to help set the edge. Nothing against those other guys. I think Vildor is another one that I just, people keep, let's talk about Vildor real quick at corner wise. Because if we get Iffy back, we can play Iffy at safety and we're going to put Branch back down in the box where he was last year. Oh boy, that's going to hurt us. Absolutely not. That's going to help us. And Vildor, 3 catches for 60 yards on 5 targets against the Colts. Vildor, 38 snaps against the Bears. Vildor, 49 snaps against the Bills. Since those 60 yards at the 3 catches, 21 yards on 8 targets.
So put that into English for the listeners. What does all that mean?
He gave up those 3 catches for 60 yards. against the Colts, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, he is terrible." He has only given up 3 catches for 21 yards since then, and over 80, almost 90, probably over 90 snaps. So, and even James alluded to it. The Bills had 1 catch for 7 yards against with Vildor. So he started for us last year. So that again, I don't want to keep going on and on. We have a rookie that's stepping up that could be cover number one. We have Vildor in this case cover number two, and hopefully Mosley comes off. So yeah, next man up. Let's go.
All right, well, let's stay with that linebacking core for just a minute. You brought up Trevor Nowaski, should hopefully be coming back. The Lions have also added a familiar name, Anthony Pittman, off the Jacksonville practice squad. So he'll be coming back. He helped with special teams and depth at linebacker last year for the Lions. So that will be a probably welcomed addition to that room. But you went to the secondary already. Kindle Vildor is there. He was playing the number 2 spot, moving Arnold to the number 1 spot. Emmanuel Mosley's coming back. We've got Enos Rakestraw coming back. Not yet, not maybe as soon as Mosley. You got Amik Robertson there. They have a lot of pieces. They could move Branch. We have Iffy. So Campbell said they don't know yet, James, about what they're going to want to do here. But I'm going to say the secondary's still in better condition than it was a year ago. I mean, we don't have Aiden Hutchinson on the front line, which we had a year ago. We don't have Aleem McNeil, which we had a year ago at this time. But we are going to get some help at the secondary level. We do have some pieces. What are you seeing in this chess match, so to speak, with putting the right pieces in the right places, set up the right defense against the attack?
Yeah, especially with, like Coach said, when Rakestraw comes back, if he comes back, hopefully Mosley can go next week. I was kind of surprised that he was inactive this week, but I think that was mainly, at least partially, because they felt they were at full strength at corner, and then Carlton Davis gets hurt. Had they known that, maybe he would have been active for the game. But so I think they're going to get some help there too. You could always move Amik Robertson out to the boundary corner if you don't feel that Vildor is up to that, and move Branch into the slot like he did last year, where he's been a great player, like Jerry said. So I don't think the secondary is the big worry in this defense. They need to get those linebackers some experience playing together and experience in Aaron Glenn's system, and that's going to come with time. And they're going to have 3 games to figure it out.
Yeah, not a whole lot of time, but there is some time. That's the thing. We know we're going to the playoffs. We don't know where and when and all that, but that there is time for the defense to do some things, and they've been preemptive in grabbing some guys off other practice squads. So we'll get more into the defense probably on the preview episode and see what things are starting to look like. But we got to talk about David Montgomery, Coach. All right? I mean, Sonic and Knuckles, one half of this group, Knuckles, is no longer playing the rest of the season. David Montgomery is going to end the season with 775 yards rushing on 185 carries with a dozen touchdowns. All right? Now, that means the Lions are going to lean more on Jahmyr Gibbs. Coach Campbell says he's going to have to step up and do more, but they need to monitor things and not overwork him. Here's some good news to Lions fans out there. Jahmyr Gibbs, through 14 games, has 186 carries. Kyron Williams of the Rams has almost 100 carries more than him at this point. He has 280, and he only has like 80 more yards than him. All right? Josh Jacobs has 100 yards more than Jahmyr Gibbs on 80 more carries than Jahmyr Gibbs. Derrick Henry, like 70 more carries. Saquon Barkley has 99 more carries than Jahmyr Gibbs, Coach. It's an 18-week season, 17 games, 100 more carries. And so Gibbs isn't going to be expected to do this himself. We got Craig Reynolds. We got Sione Vaki. But, Coach, you've been hearing me beat this drum for about 3 to 4 weeks now about the fact that these two guys are helping keep each other fresh. Unfortunately, one of them has gone down with injury. But this has got to be a little bit of encouragement for the Lions that Gibbs has only 186 carries at this point.
Sure, fresh legs and keeping them healthy, knock on wood. And they're not going to beat him up. They're not going to give him 25, 30 carries. But instead, he may be averaging a couple, maybe 5 more, maybe 6 more. Reynolds can be that Knuckles. He's not going to break it, but he's going to freaking run you over. He's tough. And Baki, we don't know what happens with him. Here's the thing I hope, and I hope and pray that he continues his pace, his percentages of explosive 10-yard plus. He was
Yeah.
at 17% last week, 17.6, where the other two guys you mentioned were at 11 and 9% of 10 plus. If he think about that, guys, with 5 more carries a game or 6 more carries a game, and he keeps up that with the explosive to 10 plus, boy, we're gonna have a field day. And people, this is actually gonna be good for him. And last year, right? Last year, 3 games. You guys remember all the yards he had in those 3 games he carried when Monty was injured? Big
Yep.
game, 155, something like that in one game. So we'll be good. Okay, we'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 2 running backs with a significant number of carries who have a better yard per average than Gibbs, and it's Saquon Barkley at 5.9 and Derrick Henry at 5.8, where Gibbs is at 5.6. So that's negligible, if you ask me, with that. So, James, what do you see with the running back position here before we move forward?
Yeah, I think you'll see a little bit more Sion Vaki too. In the preseason, he looked like a young David Montgomery on a lot of the times when he carried the ball. So you could, I don't think he'll step right into that role and play as much as Montgomery did, obviously. But between him and Reynolds, they're both kind of similar stylistically to what Montgomery does. Um, so I think that they'll be okay there at running back. I mean, obviously losing Montgomery is a big loss. His pass protection this season has been phenomenal. He has just been just stonewalling guys at the line of scrimmage, just stopping linebackers in their tracks when they try to come through that hole and put some pressure on Jared Goff. Um, but hopefully Craig Reynolds is an experienced guy, knows how to do that too. Vaki, we haven't seen him do much, but a very high IQ, football IQ guy. So I have pretty good confidence that he's eligible or can do that as well.
All right, and still on the practice squad is Jermar Jefferson. And you may see him get activated or called up for this week's game. You might see him, because I agree with Coach. You want to work these other guys in, especially, I'm going to tell you what Coach said about those defensive backs. I think it was Coach, could have been you, James, about the defensive backs working together and getting this playing time. I think they want some of these other running backs to get some carries these next couple of weeks. So that way they're getting ready for the postseason run as well. And you're keeping Gibbs healthy at the same time. All right, guys, show's getting a little long. We got some other things to get to, but we're going to have to go a little quickly. So, short and sweet. James, we lost to Buffalo. We all said losing to the Bills, the AFC team, that was like the least important, game as far as how all this affects the standings. James, Coach, we all know that this loss has raised concerns for people because it's one more loss and all those injuries. But let's look at the flip side of this, James. Does the loss do any good?
I think you can take a positive from it. Yes. I think that this team, and we know if anything, they're going to react well to this. They're not gonna sit there and stew about it. They're going to be more focused than ever and hopefully take it out on Chicago next week. So, I think it can be a good motivator that way. And and the offense is just going to have to carry this team, I think, the rest of the season, and they did almost to a win over what I think is the best team in the AFC.
Yeah, and that best team in the AFC just came off a loss the week before they played us. Coach, we won, 11 in a row, right? And people are like, well, we're being tested, so that's good. But there's nothing, and I mean this in a weird way, there's nothing that affects you like losing a game. Am I right?
Oh, there's nothing like it, but there's also a rallying cry with it too. There's also come down to earth. There's also quit reading the press clippings. There's also, hey, we got some fallen comrades right now. We have to rally around those guys. And I think that's the big thing. And we're going to go on the road. We've been home a few weeks in a row, right? And now it's a division game. Now it means, and we talked about this, where they control their own destiny and they know the next part of that step to get up that ladder to get to the top has got to go through Chicago. So how well did we play defensively when we lost Hutch? What's the offense going to do now losing Monty? I just see it.
There you go. And you know what? The Lions didn't stand pat when things happened, right? You can tell they want to win this They want to win these games. They want to make the playoffs in a good way, and they want to elevate and go as far as they can. I mean, they traded for Zadarius Smith. They made that move. They went when you guys were looking for laptops and cell phone deals on Black Friday, they were going practice squad shopping. Okay? So, Coach, you keep saying next man up. Sometimes I feel like I need you just to say it once and I can just keep hitting the repeat button. And people are saying, well, how many deep can you go with this one man up thing? And I'm going to say two things. One, A, I don't know. But B, if anybody can do it, this coaching staff can do it. Okay? I would not bet against them. I don't know what's going to happen. They know more than I do. And if there's any coaching staff that can handle a situation like this, it's Dan Campbell, the group that Brad Holmes has helped assemble with all the assistant coaches of Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, Calvin Shepard, and so forth. All right, we got to wrap this up and get this out of here. James, you had a question for Coach because he watched the broadcast and we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, Matt and I didn't watch the game on TV. So, but apparently Lions fans were none too happy with Tony Romo's call of the game. What did you see on that, Jerry?
Oh my, I was trying to hit mute every time he opened his mouth. It was the worst thing I've heard in a long time. Okay. First of all, the one Goff throws the pass that I think it was a little swing pass, and he says, "Oh, my 10-year-old daughter could make that pass." I'm like, "Are you serious?" And then when Goff ran for the first down, there was a bunch of them. These are the two that really stuck out. What the best one was when he said, "Goff, oh yeah, go get that first down with your 5.5 40." Well, I think one of us looked up, and in their pro day, I believe Jared Goff was faster than Romo. So I guess you should probably read your press clippings before you run your mouth. Next time, maybe just announce the game and not anoint the Buffalo Bills the Super Bowl champs and Allen the best quarterback ever to be assembled in the game. That's all. That was my take, and I'll leave it at that.
James.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, Jared Goff's combine time was 4.88.
Okay.
It was about 50-50, right in the middle of all the quarterbacks. The year that Romo came out, his was like 5.01, which was almost dead last among quarterbacks that year.
All right. Yeah, Coach.
One more quick thing. I forgot. It's funny. I want to throw this in. I know we're on time, but Jared Goff and Josh Allen met before the game on the sidelines because they're really good buddies. And everybody talks about how large Allen is. Jared Goff is a big man, guys. I could not believe. I think he's taller. I don't know if he's as heavy. And I think he may run better than Allen. We should compare their 40 times. But anyways, that was one of the things I looked at and went, wow, I can't believe how big. I didn't realize Goff was that big.
Well, Jared Goff is 6'4" and Josh Allen is 6'5". The difference is, Josh Allen weighs 237 pounds and Jared Goff 217. So there's a little bit, but you're right. I mean, Jared Goff's got some height and it does sneak up on you because you don't necessarily think of him as being a tall quarterback, but he does have that height with him. All right. One of my final thoughts is I love DJ Reader's quote after the game. They were asking him about it, and I'm just gonna paraphrase one word, but he says, "We just lost. It happens. Crap. We've been kicking everybody's butt for 12 weeks, and this week it happened to be us." Okay, so I like that by DJ Reader. Standings update. Hey. We are 12-2. The Eagles are 12-2. The Vikings are playing, likely to go to 12-2. I hope I'm wrong. We'll talk a little bit more about that stuff in the next episode. We just know it's a razor thin room for error at this point. But like Coach said, we got division games. We have NFC games. It's all within our control. James, quick thing on the crowd. There were some Buffalo fans there, more than I'm used to in a Detroit Ford Field Stadium.
Yeah, the Buffalo fans tend to travel pretty well, and it's not that far of a trip from upstate New York, really, especially if you come through Canada and go through Ontario. So if you got your passport updated, it's not that big of a trip. So there was a decent amount there, but it wasn't a takeover by any means. I mean, it was a fraction of what the Lions fans that we saw in Indianapolis.
Oh, yeah. I don't think another team is taking over Ford Field these days, but it was the most impressive showing that I have seen from a visiting fan group a visiting team fan group in the last 2 years. All right. Oh, and folks, we're just about out of here, but I got to mention James Cook was on the field before the game, senior sports writer for the Traverse City Record Eagle. He is on the panel to select the high school coach of the week by the Detroit Lions. They recognize him and others before the game. James, I got to see you last year. I was helping my brother-in-law with a shirt, and he's looking for a shirt, and I was helping him with it, and I got back, and I heard from my other brother-in-law that you were on the screen because he knows you, and I'm like, did you get a picture? He's like, no, I didn't even think about it. I meant to do that to put you on social media, but congratulations on getting to go down there, and thank you for all the work you do for the Detroit Lions to recognize the coaches of the week. Coach Jerry Angers was one of those guys. I think he would like to thank you personally as well. He's probably done that about a dozen times so far.
Yes, sir. James
Awesome.
is a smart guy.
All right, well, Coach James, thank you for running this episode back with so much information. Folks, we're going to have more later this week when we preview the Bears game, so be ready to look out for that. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can get more episodes, more content at notthesameoldlions.com. You can even find merchandise there. Tell your friends and family about the show. Like and comment on social, subscribe, regardless of your listening platform. And until next time, stay gritty, my friends.